Morning, first of all. I never said morning. Morning. Welcome back. Long weekend just around the corner. So I introduced the cosine law to you yesterday. I don't think we spent enough time, to be honest, on it, so here it is again. There are three cases in which you will end up having a pair, in which case you want to be using the sine law. But there are two cases in particular where whether you just memorize these two cases or you just look at it as the information is presented, there will be no pair visible. So SSS, all three sides are given, no angle. You have to use cosine law for that one. If you have two sides and the angle in between, also no pair available, you're going to have to use cosine law. If you have an SAS case, on your study sheet, you want to have this formula for SAS. So if you have a side angle side, the only thing you can do to start off is to solve for the side length that's across the only angle you're given. That's the only thing you can do to start off. Once you find x, folks, you have now a pair, correct? You could switch over to sine law after. So as soon as you start finding one piece of information, you can switch over to whichever law you prefer. But to start off, you have to pick the right one. Okay? So side angle side, the only thing you can do is solve for the side that's across the only angle provided. So this is the formula you would want to use in that case. If you have side, 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 you want to have this formula on your study sheet, right? And here it gets tricky. You got to be careful. You can solve for any angle you would like. You ready for this, right? If you have all three sides, you can choose this one, or that one, whichever one. If you're solving a triangle, though, please start with the largest angle every single time. And the reason being is because if it's obtuse, cosine law can determine that. It actually knows, oh, this is an obtuse angle. Sine law doesn't, okay? So if you switch over to sine law after solving for an angle, it may be that you're solving for an obtuse angle, but sine law is going to give you an acute angle for that one. That's why we want to make sure we find the largest angle and then get it out of the way. It may or may not be obtuse, but at least you've ruled it out, okay? All right, let's keep going. So I hope these two formulas are on your study sheet already. And then we solved one question. We're going to keep going here. Let's see. We're going to go to page 26. I don't know why I was saying 103. I guess the angle is 103. So page 26. And remember to do the homework, guys, okay? It's not just you're not going to become really good at it if you don't practice this. You want to be able to know and identify without looking too much, without taking too long, what do I need to do here? And because it's going to be several steps down the road, the first step is going to affect everything else. So you want to be sure you're ready to go. Okay. In this particular case, imagine we don't know which law we're supposed to use here. You figure out, is there any way I can get like an angle side pair? And the answer is no, I can't. Or you just remember side, angle, side. I'm going to use cosine law. There's also no pair. Okay? I can't even use sine law even if I wanted to. So I'm going to solve, the only thing I can do if it's SAS is solve for the side that's across the one angle given. So I start like this. C squared is equal to 13 squared plus 26.7 squared. I'm just using the formula, by the way. Minus 2 times 13 times 26.7 times cosine of 103 degrees. That's what the formula calls for. So basically, it's the only two sides that you have plugged in here. Okay, and then cosine of 103. The next step is, for me at least, is to take the root of both sides. So you end up with this, right? C squared turns into C. You know what? It doesn't hurt. Why don't we do that? Basically what you're doing is you're taking the root of both sides. So you get rid of the square and the square root. So you're left with C. And then plug in this whole thing into your calculator right now. So I plugged the whole thing into my calculator, and I got 1038.05 something, right? 1038.05, and that keeps going. So side C will be found by taking the square root. So I go second x2, copy paste. So that's 32.22. And we are in inches. Does it make sense for it to be the longest side? Yeah, it's 32.22. And the other ones are all shorter. And remember, you only ever have one obtuse angle. So we know this is the largest angle. We expect the longest side across from it. Okay, so we've done a bit of checking to make sure that's all right. And now what can we do now? I'm going to just block this off. Okay, it says solve the triangle, so we now know this side. So all three sides are known to us. Okay, so now we have all three sides. Okay, use Coase law or sine law. Like you also have a pair, by the way. You found side C. I'm going to just use cosine law because we want to practice cosine law. So if I may, I'll just quickly ask you to sketch the top one. Or we're going to omit the 103. We're going to omit the 103. We're just going to focus on the three sides that we have. Okay. Sorry, well, the 103, we know what that is. It doesn't hurt putting it in there, but I'm going to focus on either finding x or finding y. And then I will just use sum of triangle to give me the rest. Which one do you want to solve for? X? All right, let's do x. My key is solved for y, but it doesn't matter. So cosine of x, you remember how this goes? It's plus minus. What you need to make sure is that back here, okay, where my pencil is hovering, you have the side opposite to the angle you want, right? So these are opposite each other. So the 26.7 goes here. And then the other two sides, it doesn't matter which order you plug them in. You need to put them in there. Make sure you square them. A lot of students forget to square. Okay, so the top calls for squaring. And then the bottom is 2 times 13 times 32.22. So the side that's across the angle you're trying to find only shows up once subtracting. That's what you need to remember. And I like you to do them in steps. So I'll figure out what the top is, I'll figure out what the bottom is, and write down the numbers accordingly. So grab your calculator and just go 13 squared plus 32.22 squared minus 26.7 squared. So the top is 494.2384. The bottom is 2 times 13 times 32.22. That's 837.72. If you divide that, top divided by bottom, That's 0.5899, and that keeps going. We do not want to round. And this is actually an accurate statement to say, right? Cosine of x is this, which reduces to this, which is really a decimal. So it's okay to just keep saying equals, equals, equals. Normally we don't like that. We go right one line at a time, but I think this is a bit more efficient use of space. So to find angle x, we're gonna have to use cosine inverse, bless you, 0.5899, and it keeps going. How does that translate on your calculator? Sorry about blocking, I'll get it off right away. Second cos, copy paste, right? So you just take the inverse of that, 5384. So angle x is that, and therefore angle y, which is still to be solved, you just go 180 minus 103 minus 53.084. And there's a bit of a rounding discrepancy depending on how you solve. If you solve for y first and then figure out x this way, you might be off by 0.01, but that's not going to be an issue. You're not going to lose marks. It's just the way it goes. So if you do this, you get 2316. So you've solved for all angles, all sides using that. Determine the height of the triangle. How do you determine the height of the triangle? I would argue that this is a little tricky because I'm not specific. So I'll copy this down. And I'm going to focus on the slants. 32.22. And this is also a slanted side here. This is 26.7. Hold it. We know that this angle here is, let me just get that right, that's x, right? This is 5384. And this one here is 103, sorry. 53, I don't know, that looks like an 8, doesn't it? 5384. So to find the height, in this case, if it's like this, this would be the height right here. This is the height. So how would I find it? Height is, I can use this slant here and multiply it by sine of this angle. Okay, so slant times sine of angle. So 32.22 times sine of 5384. And what is that? That's 26.01 inches. So I'm going to highlight, I'm going to actually use highlighters here. Oops. So this slant was that. Pink kind of doesn't do a good job, does it? And this is my angle right here. That's how you find the height. Is there another slant? Is this one here? So I'm just going to say, or you could go 26.7, this is 26.7, times sine of, which is the angle that's touching 26.7, it's 103, right? So you go times 103. If you do that, That's 26.02. Say what? Why is it off? That's okay. We're not going to sweat it. That's just a rounding. If we could have used all decimals for everything, we should have had the same. Just show your work and you'll be fine. What does it say here? Let's just look at the notes because they are, I do. Cos of an obtuse angle will always be negative. Inverse cos of an angle will be obtuse. Can we practice that once? So, right, if you were to go cosine of, let's say, 100 degrees, you're going to get a negative value. That's okay. Don't fear it, okay? Same thing. Let's try to take the inverse of this. So if we were to go second cosine to call the inverse and then copy paste that in, you should get back to 100 degrees, right? So what we know is if this value up here, okay, this is what I'm going to tell you. I told you this yesterday already. If the top value is positive, you know you're going to get an acute angle. But if you crunch the top and you end up with a negative here, don't worry about it. Just make sure you don't drop it. Some students just want to get rid of the negative. It's like, I'll just continue without the negative. No, you got to keep it there. Because then you're going to get an obtuse angle. It's going to be bigger than 90, okay? Keep going. Let's go page 27. Determine the measure of the largest angle, okay? I'm going to give you a few minutes. I want you to sketch a triangle, put the numbers where they belong, and attempt to solve for the largest angle, okay? You should know how to do that, or at least how to get started. If you don't get the right answer,